Financial leadership is changing. CFOs no longer record history. They make history. This podcast will help you become a better leader, strategic thinker, and digital visionary. Welcome to Secrets of Rockstar CFOs, the ultimate podcast for chief financial officers. Follow along as Jack McCullough engages in exciting chats with accomplished CFOs, learning how they overcame obstacles and positioned their companies for the future. Here's your host, Jack McCullough.
Hello, Rockstars, and welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. I'm your host, Jack McCullough, and I'm thrilled to have you here. You can follow us online at rockstarcfos.com. A big shout out to our sponsors, Planful and the CFO Leadership Council, for making this podcast possible. Let's dive into a great episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. Really excited about today's guest, so we're going to get right into it. Today, I'm joined by Rebecca Beam. She is the CFO of Chargeback Gurus. Chargeback Gurus helps businesses recover lost revenue by managing and preventing chargebacks while providing insights to improve payment dispute strategies. Rebecca, welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, it's great. I'm glad to have you. And hopefully I didn't butcher the company description too badly in my one sentence, but maybe you can add a little more color to that, give it the old 10,000 foot view.
Absolutely. No, I think you did great with your description. Ultimately, Chargeback Gurus is wanting to prevent chargebacks for our clients and recover revenue from chargebacks. Maybe for those who aren't super familiar with the term chargeback, a chargeback is a dispute of a credit card transaction by the cardholder that ultimately results in a reversal of the funds. So we utilize extensive industry expertise. We leverage powerful data science and learning models that's really powered by our proprietary platform to provide the best evidence and the best way on behalf of our clients so that the banks can make the right decision on whether or not the funds should be returned to the merchant or actually belong to the cardholder.
Okay. Well, that's a great description. And I know I think last year you made the Inc. 5000 list. So obviously you're filling an important niche and growing rapidly. So.
Absolutely. Yes. We made the Inc. 5000 list. We've also won some awards on our proprietary system. So, very excited and honored for those different awards that we've won.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, and we'll definitely talk about your company quite a bit, but I want to get a little bit on your own background.
Okay,
And
great.
I can tell from your accent where you grew up, and plus, you told me beforehand anyway. But you grew up in North Carolina, I believe.
That's correct. I grew up in a small town, Concord, North Carolina. It was a small town back then. It's really developed a lot over the last 25 years or so. The closest big city to Concord is Charlotte, which is where I live now.
Oh, okay, great. And I understand your mother was born in Saudi Arabia. So.
Yes, she was. So my mom grew up in Saudi Arabia. My grandfather worked for Aramco, the oil company. My grandmother also was originally from Greece, grew up in Egypt, and she had siblings in Australia, Egypt, Canada. So while I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, I got worldly view from listening to their stories throughout the years.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It must have been an interesting childhood to have parents with that sort of perspective. So
it was. And it's funny that you bring up my accent because my grandmother, like I said, grew up in Greece, but she actually spoke 5 different languages. And kind of throughout my early childhood and even into high school and college when I would take foreign language classes, and I would always try to speak to her. Typically, I took Spanish or French, but I would try to speak to her in those languages. And she would often make comments about my Southern accent with my foreign language. So she always got a kick out of that.
Yeah, I took French in high school, and one of my classmates, he was from Texas. And he was taking French with me, and it was hysterical. Then parlez-vous français, and we were probably saying in a Boston accent, but we wouldn't have recognized it amongst ourselves. So, but do you speak any foreign languages? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you speak any foreign languages now?
I don't. I mean, I remember things from high school and college. I can still recite the French national anthem, which came in handy during the Olympics this year. But no languages fluently.
Oh, yeah. So I'm the same. Yeah, I took it for 4 years and I can speak about 14 words of it. I can read and write it a little bit, but when I hear it, it goes past me. So, but I understand. So you grew up, did you have many brothers and sisters?
I have two older brothers.
Cool. And I have two sisters, and I understand that your older brothers put you through some of the same things that I did to my sisters. They were quite the World Wrestling Federation. It was no end fans. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, my brothers were fans of the WWE, some of those popular wrestlers from the early 90s. They would often try to replicate figure four leg locks. I was typically the person that they would try those wrestling moves on. So it was a very interesting childhood.
To me, that's a good brother. Yeah, it's remarkable. I did the same thing, the actual same hold, the figure four leg lock. Ric Flair,
Oh, nice.
I believe, was from North Carolina, right? So maybe that's why. But yeah, I did the old figure four leg lock on my sisters. Wasn't the
Yeah,
nicest thing a brother could have done, but yeah, perhaps.
that's right. Ric Flair, if you remember him, is a
Yeah,
wrestler
yeah,
from this area.
yeah. He actually wrestled within the last 2 years.
Oh,
So
did he?
yeah, I mean, he's got to be 75 now, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm 60, and I remember watching him as a child, and he's well older than I am. I mean, I remember watching him when I was like 10, and he's got to be 10 or 15 years older than me.
Hmm.
To been on TV. So anyway, that's probably about enough about the World Wrestling Federation for the moment. Hopefully, we'll find a way to come back to it. But anyway, you studied when you graduated from high school. You studied mathematics first, and then you got a master's in accountancy. And I'm curious how that educational combination has served you professionally.
Yeah, no. So I did. I went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and got my undergraduate degree in mathematics. Later, well, not later, I guess directly after, attended the Master of Accounting program at Keenan Flagler Business School, and that combination of degrees has really helped me, professionally. I feel like, and I'm a big believer of, if you can truly understand, the underlying principles of whether it's mathematics or it's finance and accounting, then you can use those skills and apply them to real world situations. So it's definitely served me well over the last several years.
Yeah, now that's great. It's, one thing I've learned from doing this podcast is there's just so many different ways to become a CFO,
Hmm.
educationally, career path, whatever it might be. So you completed your master's and then you worked at PwC.
I did.
And so what were the great lessons you learned there? You had what, about a 5-year run at PwC, Rebecca?
Yeah, a little less.
Okay. So what were some of the big lessons and maybe some key mentors that you met along the way?
Yeah. So, like you said, I started my career at PwC. Coming out of grad school, I was fairly certain that I wanted to work for a big four firm in audit. Not necessarily sure what industry I wanted to go in, but pretty early in the recruitment process, I connected with a female partner from PwC, and she was in the private companies practice. And she was really instrumental in kind of shaping my career thus far. I feel like PwC is where I really learned the profession. Of course, in the classroom, you always learn the principles and, kind of the textbook way of doing things. But for me, it's really about applying that in the real world that helps me grasp and master those concepts. Working in the private company practice gave me exposure to several different industries throughout my career there and with the different clients that I worked with. So I had some exposure to real estate, wholesale distribution, family office, financial services. So it gave me kind of this wide view on different companies, different industries, and just helped me overall learn different things.
Yeah, no, that may, and I tell young people if they're not sure, where they want to focus, I just recommend public accounting exactly
Mhm.
because of the experience you just described. You've got, 3 to 5 years, whatever it might be. You're exposed to some of the most talented people in the industry and in the profession, excuse me, and then all sorts of industries. So you've got 3 to 5 years to figure it out. By the way, you're getting paid and doing really interesting work along the way. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. Public accounting remains a difficult place to work, but it's so worthwhile. So,
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I often reference my time at PwC as an extension of the master's program because you learn so much so quickly. And a lot of times you're working with people who are in the exact same situation that you are. They just graduated from a MAC program or graduated from college. They're about the same age, and you're all really experiencing the same life era, if you will, at the same time.
Oh yeah, that was so cool. Like when my I worked at Pete Marwick and Mitchell, KPMG to you young listeners. But my starting class was 100 people, and I knew precisely none of them before I started. So it was just kind of a cool little community that we developed there. So, but I want to talk about your post public accounting career. And your biggest job, by tenure, I mean, was at Maxwell, which is a
Mhm.
healthcare communities. And what was that like? I'd like to, what are some of the things that prepared you for your current role when you're at Maxwell?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, like I said, at PwC, I had some exposure in the real estate industry. And so, after PwC, I spent many years in real estate and senior housing operations as a controller and then a CFO. And that company, Maxwell Group, family owned company here in Charlotte, we operated continuing care retirement communities, mainly in the Southeast. You know, CCRC's very important industry in my mind, especially as the baby boomer generation is aging. A key factor to a happier, healthier life is really socialization. And I think the one thing that we did well there was developing programs around dining and social experiences to help seniors live that happier, healthier lifestyle. And while I was at that organization in those roles, we did a lot of process improvement. It's really where I found this excitement around implementing different technologies and platforms to make our lives on the financial side more efficient and ultimately do our role in supporting what was the overall major mission of the company, which, like I said, was to help seniors live these healthier and happier lives.
No, that's fantastic. It's great when you can work for a company that the mission somehow improves the world itself, right? Which is
Agreed.
definitely something you're doing. So that's
Agreed.
fantastic. So you had a great run there, and then it's interesting because you went from there doing great things, working for an important company, and then you did a little switcheroo. You went to the tech industry.
Yes.
So I'm kind of curious, how'd you come across the opportunity? And, looking back, obviously, it's a great choice. The company's doing well. It's a marquee company, but sort of what were you thinking at the time? Because, it's not the most obvious of transitions to someone looking from the outside.
No, I completely agree. And so at the end of my time at in senior housing, my life was changing a little bit personally. I had my first child, and I think that first year of life of motherhood or parenthood in general is always a very difficult one. Like I said previously, I feel like if you really truly understand and have a good grasp of underlying accounting principles, finance principles, you can take that and you can apply that to any industry. I think historically, there's always kind of been this mindset that people need to work their entire careers in one industry. And I don't think that's true because I do think, like I said, as long as you have a true understanding of the profession, the finance profession, you can apply that elsewhere. And so, at that point in my life, I was looking to make a change, and Chargeback Gurus really incorporates a lot of my interests. And that's what drew me to this role. So, I've spent the majority of my career working with privately held companies, whether that's family owned or private equity backed. I really enjoy companies that are at this point of transformation and growth, which is where Chargeback Gurus is. And, I like that. I guess I have a knack for implementing new platforms, implementing process improvements, automating processes, putting controls in place, transitioning from like a cash concept for accounting to accrual accounting and really driving progression for accounting and finance functions. So, that was one piece of the Chargeback Gurus role. I've also always had an interest in fraud and just the human behavior behind it. You learn a lot about the fraud triangle in accounting programs. I think another thing that Carolina does well is they really put an emphasis on well-rounded education. So as part of my undergraduate degree, I took several sociology classes, obviously completely unrelated to a math major, and that sparked some interest in why people behave the way that they do. And lastly, like I said, in my role at Maxwell Group, I really, found this passion for tech-enabled solutions that drive efficiencies in the finance function. And ultimately, the goal of Chargeback Gurus is to help make this challenge with chargebacks become something that we can do more efficiently for our clients and ultimately recover revenue for our clients. So it really brought those three things together for me. And that's why this role is so exciting. Not to mention, completely brand new industry. And I like to try new things.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And that is the one thing about the CFO role in the modern world is the skills are very portable because, you're bright, I believe you've remained a CPA, but whether or not that's true, you've got the solid skills in accounting and you can pick up the stuff and delegate what you don't have time to. But it's really about leadership, strategy, and vision and, partnering with the CEO. That's sort of the modern CFO, and that's not industry specific. So,
Right.
yeah. So
Completely agree.
it makes sense. On the subject of partnering with the CEO, you work for one of the best ones. He's a bit of a titan in your industry. I don't think it's
Yes.
unfair to call him that, Tim Tynan. And I'm wondering what your relationship with Tim is, and because it's the critical relationship in the company.
I completely agree. I mean, I feel like with any relationship, it takes some time to develop. I feel like there's always this period where you're trying to learn and understand how the other person either prefers to communicate or really wants to consume information. This relationship is really no different, but we have a fantastic working relationship. Like you said, he has some unbelievable experience in the payment space and in some other industries as well. And the thing that I really appreciate about our relationship is that we collaborate on the different strategies and we review projections together. And together we decide on what's the best next steps forward as an organization. And I think one thing that I also appreciate about him is he is a big believer in inclusion. So if there's any one person within the organization that might have a piece of information that's important to a conversation, he's the type of person that wants to include that person, invite them to the conversation. It's not about, this small team doing things in a vacuum. It really is about the broader organization and very client focused. And ultimately, our goal is to ensure that we are meeting the goals of our clients.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And you mentioned inclusion, and when we spoke previously, the pride you have in your own team is palpable. I mean, it's pretty obvious. We'd met for the first time. But, what's your philosophy on building a world-class team, maybe both within finance and accounting and also across the entire enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, so what you said is absolutely true. Actually, our team is very motivating for me. I look for people that have positive attitudes and really this motivation for improvement, process improvement, improving their skills, wanting to make it to the next level. We are a company of honesty and integrity and transparency. And I think that's something that is really cascaded from the top down. So we're looking for people to join our team that ultimately, have that same type of mindset.
Strategic leadership isn't just nice to have for today's CFOs. It's a necessity. As the demands of your role evolve, staying ahead means learning from those at the top of their game. Join us at the Spring 2025 CFO Leadership Conference, where finance leaders come together to tackle today's most pressing challenges. Over 3 dynamic days, you'll experience interactive workshops, inspiring panel discussions, and unparalleled network opportunities with peers who understand your world. Hear from top-tier speakers, including CFOs from industry giants like Philo, Conagra Brands, NerdWallet, and OpenText, plus other thought leaders who are shaping the future of finance. And don't miss the Indiana Jones of the FBI as he shares unforgettable leadership lessons from his extraordinary career. Gain actionable strategies, real-world insights, and the tools to elevate your leadership and drive your organization's success. Register now at CFOLC.com to take advantage of early bird pricing. And don't forget to use the code ROCKSTAR100 for even more savings. Let's grow, lead, and solve challenges together.
So I think that's great that the two of you have such a fantastic relationship and that you've built such a world-class team around you. I want to talk a little bit more about Chargeback Gurus on a bit of a more global basis. And the first one, and Rebecca, forgive her, this is a little bit of a cliched question, but what are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities you see the company facing in the next few years?
So I think in general, chargebacks are really increasing on a global level. So I think in 2023, the volumes of chargebacks was somewhere between 8 and 11 billion. And that's expected to increase approximately 50% by 2026. So, in general, a lot of our clients, merchants globally are having challenges related to chargebacks. And so ultimately that gives us the opportunity to build these long-lasting relationships with our clients to help them with that challenge.
That makes a lot of sense. So, and one thing that occurs to me, for one thing, fintech generally, and I don't know your industry specifically, but it's constantly changing and it's, I think, hyper competitive might be a fair way to describe it.
Mhm.
And so in your role as a CFO, you need to balance that in a competitive landscape. So you need to support growth, innovation, problem solving. But you're the CFO, you've also got to do that in a financially prudent way. So how do you
Exactly.
manage those two things?
Yeah, no, I mean, the things that I think that we do really well, speaking of competitors and in the space is that we have an award-winning platform that we have developed internally. You were talking about our team earlier, and we've developed this very talented team of product engineers that has helped us develop this platform, which is really the basis for our success over the last couple of years. And with that, we pride ourselves on having industry leading recovery rates and fully aligning ourselves with our customers' goals. Because, like I said previously, we really are a client focused company, and we want to give our clients that expert advice and recommendations to ultimately help them improve their processes, create efficiencies, reduce the number of chargebacks, and recover the most revenue possible. In my role as CFO, I'm really working and collaborating with the other leaders in our company to ensure that our strategy plan is also aligning with our financial plan. And I think the thing that we do well as a company and as a leadership team is we come together regularly and we review those two things to ensure that our strategy makes sense and that is really aligning again with the goals of our clients, but that also is relevant to our financial plan. And we review those things regularly to be sure that they are aligned.
So that makes sense. And you've mentioned customer client satisfaction, I think was the term you used. But, given that you yourself have a financial background and, understand the issues that people might be facing, are you actually involved in any support role, or do the developers ever come to you to pick your brain a little bit?
Yes. The thing that I like a lot about working with private companies, and I mean, I think this happens in the public world as well, but a lot of times in the private company world, you get exposure to not just the financial function, but you get a lot more exposure to the operational function, the marketing function, just the overall business as a whole. And so, yes, I mean, to your point, we regularly together look at the product and say, is the formula driving this piece of the product? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to me as, a financial user of the product? And to be honest, I mean, you may be shocked to know that as a chargeback management company, we in the past have received chargebacks. So not only
Mhm.
am I the CFO of the company, I'm actually a user of our product. And we give feedback to one another, respectfully on the product itself. I said before that the team really motivates me because we regularly have discussions on how can we make things better for our clients. Listening to our client solution team speak about if we tweak this for XYZ client, then they can receive this type of positive ROI. I mean, it's very exciting, but we do that kind of across the organization. That's not just the ops team. It's not just the sales team deciding how to sell things. Like we truly do as an organization talk about those different items together.
That's fantastic. And it's got to be exciting that you can actually influence the direction of your company, right? If you worked for an airline or a pharmaceutical company, not that those people aren't really, really smart, because I'm sure they're brilliant, but
Right.
you're not really influencing the customer satisfaction model all that much, I wouldn't think. So,
Exactly. Exactly. I
yeah.
agree.
So that's pretty cool. So I am actually legally required to ask you the following question. I can lose my license as a podcast host. But Gen AI I think we're now about 2 years into the whole Gen AI hitting the mainstream now. And so how are you're obviously very technically savvy. How are you using Gen AI and some other advanced technologies to give chargeback a competitive and sustainable advantage?
Yeah. So, we're using AI in the finance function just through different platforms that we have implemented. About, I guess, a year and a half ago or so, we did implement a new financial reporting platform. So, I know those platforms are incorporating AI in those cloud-based programs. I also have noticed that our CRM has AI insights associated with it as well. So, the different platforms that we use, tech stacks, operationally for our company definitely have those elements incorporated in them. I have mentioned a few times now that we have our own proprietary system, FPR1, that we use for servicing our clients, our tech-enabled service. And over the last, several months, several years, our talented product engineering team has developed data science, machine learning models within that system to ultimately help our teams, like I said, present the best evidence and the best way to the bank so that the banks can make the right decisions.
No, that's fantastic. So I want to get your perspective, and you and I both share. We not that you're old school, you're too young to be old school, but we both did start off at large CPA firms. And the role of the CFO since the start of our career has changed quite a bit. But how do you see the CFO role and maybe financial leadership evolving in the years ahead?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think a couple of things. I think what we've seen recently is, one, that term CFO sometimes isn't always used, or what I've seen companies do is they'll have a chief accounting officer who's maybe that more traditional path, like I am, the CPA path, and then they'll have this role of like chief strategy officer that's maybe gone the more investment banking route. So I've seen that happen. I also think the role of CFOs is evolving to not just be about the numbers and the financials, but what we're seeing CFOs now responsible for is, some IT aspects, even some risk management aspects on the IT side. We're seeing this concept of ESG become a role of the CFO. I have a really good friend who works for a produce company, and she's on the marketing side, sustainability, and now all of a sudden she's making contributions into the financial filings that are ultimately governed by the CFO of that company. So I think it's not just about the numbers anymore, and things are starting to move to incorporate a lot more aspects of the business being a function of the finance role.
you know, F is for finance, right? In CFO. So it's obviously never going to be never going to not be a part of being a CFO. Funny, I'm thinking F is for finance. All of a sudden I'm thinking Cookie Monster, and that's good enough for me. But what is wrong with me? But anyway, so it'll never be a part of it, but there's so much more to it. You mentioned like there's companies have a chief strategy officer, but that's part of the CFO's role. The chief accounting officer, that's part of the CFO's role. And, so you have to be good at so many things. My first CFO role, I think I got because I was a very good controller, very good at, the numbers part of the job. And, that wouldn't get it done today, at least in most companies, and certainly not a company like Chargeback. So, but
Agree.
well, I always like to ask our members, because I am committed to changing the perception of our profession. So I used to ask people for jokes or something like that, but then someone told me a dirty joke and I don't want to hear it anymore. It's like, not what I was going for. But do you have like a fun fact or an interesting story about yourself?
A fun fact or interesting story about myself. So, I guess a fun fact is that I was a cheerleader in middle school, high school, and first year of college. Actually, growing up as a kid, I was a little on the shy side. I was definitely more reserved in a school setting than maybe I was at home. But, I'll never forget when I first made the cheerleading squad in middle school and they did the morning announcements and then announced who was on the team. And my English teacher coming over to me and saying, "Did I hear that right? Or are you on the cheerleading team for next year? I'm just so surprised. Are you gonna do the cheers? I didn't know that you spoke much." So it definitely, helped me break out of my shell in terms of like a school setting and something that I really think has helped me gain confidence, over my lifetime. But I was a cheerleader my first year at Carolina and actually got an injury that I understand to not be all that common. I actually broke my first rib, which my understanding is not very common because your first rib is protected by your clavicle. So ultimately, when the doctors at UNC realized what had happened, because for the longest time they thought it was maybe just some strained muscles in my back, they mentioned how uncommon it was, and if it was okay with me, they would include it in some of their medical journaling. So I have no idea whatever happened with that medical journaling, but apparently my injury somewhere along the way was included in some of their studies.
Okay, yeah, so that might be the worst fun fact we've ever had. You sustained a terrible injury that has been written up in medical journals. Oh
Yeah.
boy. Uh,
And the trainers they gave me a hard time about it. They're like, "How do you break a first rib when all you're doing is just holding up signs?" So they had a good time with it as well.
yeah, well, I've actually heard, and I know it to be true because I was skeptical, so I looked it up. But cheerleaders actually suffer more injuries than the athletes for whom they're cheering for in most sports. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's actually it seems like it's safe, but I'm talking like competitive cheerleaders, right? Where you're
Uh-huh.
at the top of a pyramid type of thing. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at your injury, but
No, that's okay.
it is kind of funny that's the direction you took the fun fact, a horrific injury.
Yes, yes.
Cool. But anyway, the other thing I like to ask is because you've got a lot going on, work-life balance, and you're also the mom of two young children. So
Yes.
how do you make it all work? So
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think at this point in my life, I'm very intentional about how I spend my time. So from the moment I wake up in the morning to the time I go to sleep, I feel like my day is fairly structured and I really try to be present in the moment for whatever I'm doing. So I have really time blocked off in as little as like 5, 10, 15 minute increments to pack lunches and get kids ready and just making sure that my day is scheduled in such a way that I can get as much of it done as possible.
no, that's the name of the game. And your husband's a doctor, if I have my facts correctly. So I'm sure he's a busy fella as well. So
Yeah, he's a PA in orthopedics, very busy. Yes, definitely a completely different field from what I am in. So it keeps the conversations interesting, and he has no idea what I'm talking about. I have no idea what he's talking about. But when it comes time for the taxes to get completed, I've got it, and when one of the children gets an injury, he's got it. So it definitely helps us to divide and conquer.
yeah, no, makes all the difference. Cool. So Rebecca, I always like to close by talking to our CFOs about, what advice you would give for the next generation of CFOs. And I'm thinking about people who are, maybe today VPs of finance or controllers, but are on that path to getting the next CFO type of job. Anything you'd share with them?
Yeah, no, I think that is a great question. I think what I would share with them is definitely take time on the fundamentals. Like I said before, if you have a true good understanding and grasp of finance and accounting principles, you can take that and you can apply that anywhere. So don't feel like you have to get pigeonholed into one specific role, one specific industry. I would say enjoy the journey, embrace the stage of life that you're in now. I feel like so often we get focused on, the next step that we're not able to enjoy where we're at today. And, so much of life is just enjoying the journey. I would definitely say to watch those around you, watch the CFOs that you're working with, maybe the board of directors that you're working with, listen to the questions that they're asking, really focus on the areas of the business that they're focused on, because you can learn so much in just watching others that are around you. Watch the leaders around you too. I think for me personally, I've had a lot of great mentors, but I've also tried to take a little bit from everyone that I have had experience with, even if it's something like that is something that I know I don't want to be. And those can be good lessons too. I've seen leaders in the past that want to lead through fear, or they have so much lack of awareness for those around them that it's really off-putting to the overall team and the members of that team. And, just learning the way others have made me feel really helped me to, ultimately develop into the person that I want to be, the leader that I want to be. So watching those around us can actually be invaluable.
Yep. As Yogi Berra used to say, you can see a lot by watching. So
That's right.
yeah, cool. Well, Rebecca, this is a fun interview. And, more importantly, I know our listeners are going to think your insights are really great. And that's what this is all about. And I'd just like to take a moment to give you the final word.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that. This has been a lot of fun. So I really appreciate you having me. If there are any fellow CFOs, fellow controllers, finance individuals out there that are experiencing any issues with chargebacks, I'd be more than happy to have personal conversations with people around this topic. It's definitely an interesting topic, and one that I've, grown to learn a lot about over the last couple of years. So happy to have conversations, connect with people. I love meeting people in other industries as well. And just ultimately, learning more. I like to learn more every single day. So thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
That wraps up this episode of The Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. A huge thank you to our sponsors, Plantful and the CFO Leadership Council, for their amazing support. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and visit us at rockstarcfos.com. Until next time, rock on.
Thank you for listening to this episode. To continue your exploration of this role that focuses on strategy, leadership, finance, and technology, listen to more episodes of the show at rockstarcfos.com. Join this revolution, episode by episode. Push yourself to achieve great things and unlock the best opportunities available to you. CFOs are creating a legacy, and it's time for you to leave your own unique imprint on the world today. That's all for now. See you on the next one.